This is the second part of a screencast about EventSentry's application scheduler. In the first part of this screencast, I simply outlined what the application scheduler is based on the example of the free checkurl utility, which notified us when the checksum of a test website changed. In this screencast, however, we're taking this to the next step, and we're going to configure EventSentry to let us know when the checkurl utility took more than a certain amount of seconds to run. And subsequently, we can use this to detect if the website is taking too long to respond. To review briefly, here we have the application schedule which we set up earlier. We're calling checkurl against localhost, which is this test website from the Nginx web server that's running on a local machine. And every 15 seconds here, if we review the application event log, we can see here that every 15 seconds, dutifully, the EventSentry agent is executing the checkurl utility, telling us that the checksum of the localhost did not change, and more importantly, it shows us how long the utility was run for. So in this particular case, 1 second. If we go down for over the last few minutes, we'll see that the duration is mostly 1 second. Every now and then, it's 2 seconds. So how can we know whether the utility took, let's say, 3 seconds or more to run, whether the website is basically responding slowly? We'll do this with an event log filter that's going to look at some of the insertion strings. We'll set up a filter that will look at this very event here, informational event ID 10200 from EventSentry to category application scheduler. But we want to know if this number is more than 1. That's possible because the event description for this event in EventSentry uses an insertion string for this number here, and we can check, we can do a numerical comparison with that number. So to do this, we can either right-click the event and say Add Include Filter, or we can double-click the event again and click this forward button here. Before we do this, however, we're going to go to the event log packages. I'm going to create a new package, just like before. I'm going to call it checkurl again, and we're going to make the package global. Then we're going to go back to the application event log here, look at the event, and hit the include button. Filter here. Our checkurl package is here in the bottom, and we'll say alert when duration exceeds 3 seconds. We'll hit OK, and the filter is added here for us. Application is checked, information is checked, and all the properties are already filled out for us by the wizard here. We'll add the default email here as the action, so this is where our alert is going to go to. Now, we don't want to save the configuration quite yet because with the way the filter is set up right now, we will get an email alert every time an informational event is being logged to the event log, and that's every 15 seconds. So we want to restrict this event a little further. And we can do that with the content filter. In a content filter, we'll hit the plus icon, which presents us with this dialog where we can pick between a few text match types. We're going to pick the insertion string match, which allows us to look at the individual insertion strings of the event. If we hit preview here, we'll see what this event really under the hood looks like. So we have percentage signs as the insertion strings basically that will say %1, which in this case would be checkurl, but its command line was run for a certain amount of seconds with the results shown below. That's number 4, and the return code is stored as insertion string number 3. Now we want to evaluate the duration, which is insertion string number 2. So we're going to hit close here. We're going to pick insertion string number 2. We want to do a numerical comparison, so we don't want to say matches here, but we want to pick one of these, which says more than. Of course, there's other things you can pick here as well, less than and so forth, and you can evaluate file checksums and group membership. But now we're going to look at more than. So we want to know if this number is more than 2. So we've now restricted this particular filter to only alert us if the number is more than 2, which is 3 and above. Again, the insertion strings of every event are different, and by moving over to the insertion string match type here and clicking preview, we can actually, it just brings up the built-in event message browser. The event message browser is also part of the SysAdmin tools. It's a standalone program, and here you can evaluate and look at the actual events as they are defined in the message DLLs. So I'll hit cancel here. So this filter is now all set up, so we'll hit save. So now let's go back to the application event log. Just like before, we're going to have to wait for the 1035 event that confirms that the new configuration that we just saved is picked up by the agent. And here it is. Again, here we can see the checkurl package here is listed under our event log packages. So of course the duration of the event of this utility has been about 1 or 2 seconds for most of the time. So we're gonna put the system, the sys system here under a little bit of stress. First we'll take a look here. There's no email, so that's good. So we're gonna put this under a little bit of stress. We're gonna start this prime 95 utility here, which can calculate prime numbers, and which is a great way of testing and stressing your CPU and memory. So you're going to start a torture test here. We're going to do the blend test here, 2 threads. We're going to click OK. And if we bring up the task manager here, we'll see that the system here is getting rather busy, especially the memory. The CPU is somewhat okay. And what can we see here? First email already popped up, and there's actually quite a few, a couple of them. So here it says duration exceeds 3 seconds, and voila, it says check URL was run for 6 seconds. And there's a second email that came in, which is 4 seconds. So we can turn off this test now. We can say stop. Okay. Put our system at rest here. Let it catch up a little bit, and we've got a few events here in the meantime. And we can see that the number here for the duration is more than the 2 that we put in, so it's 3 or higher. So we've got 5, 4, and 6. Let's go back here to make sure that everything here is correct. So after the 1035 event, we had a few. It took me about a minute or so before the utility was active, and then we can see how the duration really crept up quite a bit, and now the duration is going back down because we stopped that test utility. And yeah, it's back to 1. So we can see here that we had exactly 3 events that exceeded those that were 3 seconds or higher: 6, 4, and 5. And let's look at our email inbox here, and we'll see here 6, 4, and 5. So it accurately evaluated the duration of that insertion string, and the filter was only active when the duration exceeded 3. Of course, in most practical examples, you'll probably want to set that number a little bit higher, but this is an easy, straightforward way to test a website's response time and get alerted if that response time exceeds a certain limit that you've set up. And all that can also be configured in the free version of EventSentry, EventSentry Lite. So the full product is not necessary to set up this type of URL monitoring. Thank you for watching this screencast.